The North Division playoffs are set to get underway. Randip, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. We know Connor McDavid has had his way with the Jets this year. Is that going to continue into the playoffs?
I think it does. And I know the Edmonton Oilers are seen as that regular season team that puts up unbelievable numbers in Draisaitl and McDavid. But I think this is the year where they do turn into that playoff team. You've seen that system that Dave Tippett has employed. They're much better defensively. Overall, look at their special teams. We know what they are. And the key factor here is you have confidence in Mike Smith. So from an Edmonton Oilers perspective, I know they're known as that regular season team that put up the gaudy numbers. And the Winnipeg Jets are known as the playoff-ready team. They've got depth. They've got, that size and that muscle. But when you're comparing both of the teams, Dan, I look at the Edmonton Oilers as now taking that step to be ready. Maybe that secondary scoring is not necessarily there, but they play a certain style that can plug it up. They've got confidence in their goaltending, and they're a pretty decent defensive team as well compared to the last number of years. So I'm leaning the Oilers on this one. What about you?
I am leaning Oilers as well, and it's just hard not to, given the way Winnipeg ended the season, right? This is a team. If we were doing this chat midway through the season, what would we have said? Yeah, Winnipeg, probably, right? That was the team that they were. They were fighting with Toronto atop the North Division and maybe fighting for that seeding, and just it kind of all fell apart as the season went on. And why did that happen? Well, Nick Ehlers was a huge part of the early season success and what he was able to do this season with Winnipeg, arguably their best player and most important player. It took Pierre-Luc Dubois a little bit of time to really get his feet wet, but now you kind of have the Jets sort of getting back healthy. I know Dubois' status is still up in the air for game one and where he's at, but that's where Winnipeg has an advantage. It's in their depth. We know Scheifele, Connor, and Wheeler, that top line. But if they can get Stastny, Dubois, and Ehlers going, then that gives you something that the Oilers don't really have. Because as much as, yes, the Oilers are a lot better this year and they have a lot of things going for them, they still don't do a ton beyond McDavid and Draisaitl. So if the Winnipeg Jets can get their secondary scoring going, I think that's what really makes this a series.
But styles make fights. And as we know, the Winnipeg Jets style goes really well with the Edmonton Oilers. They love to, jump in transition. Defensively, they're playing rather loose. They give up a lot in front of Connor Hellebuck. So McDavid and Draisaitl, they feast on that, and they did that during the regular season. My question is, how different will Winnipeg's game be in the playoffs? Are they a little bit tighter? I doubt it, because that's who they are. That's who their identity has been. They rely on hot goaltending. So really, in the big scheme of things, it really comes down to Connor Hellebuck. Is it Vezina winning Connor Hellebuck that's playing? Because outside of that, I don't necessarily see the Winnipeg Jets winning the series, based on the fact that the firepower, the way that Edmonton plays against Winnipeg this year, run and gun, they can match them. Winnipeg gives up a lot of high danger chances. And as we know, Edmonton will take advantage of that. So I have this one going. And I know folks in Winnipeg are not going to like this. I got the Oilers in 5.
Okay. All right. Oilers in 5 for Randy. Now, I do want to bring a difference of opinion. So I'm going to play devil's advocate with you.
Okay.
How much does last year's series against Chicago play into your mindset? Because nobody, and I mean nobody, picked Chicago to beat Edmonton last year in the bubble. But it happened because they have lapses in judgment defensively. Mike Smith can get a little wobbly in net. There are ways you can beat the Edmonton Oilers. And I do think Winnipeg has those elements, as we talked about with the top six and those forwards that they have. Connor Hellebuck could stand on his head for a series. Nobody's going to be surprised at that sort of an outcome. But I do think, when we look at the Winnipeg Jets and everybody kind of looks at their analytics and is like, they're terrible. Look at the numbers. They give up so many shots and the high danger chances and all this. And you've often heard, if you listen to Paul Maurice, he talks about, their own proprietary data says a lot different from what we may see at another website, and what's available to the public. And the big thing about the Winnipeg Jets that could potentially turn this into their favor is how they play in transition. The Oilers, we know they can get caught, and that is going to be the big thing. And Ehlers is what can unlock that. The quick strike in transition when you get the Oilers committing too many players forward. That's what could potentially swing this series for Winnipeg. For me, Randy.
You bring up Chicago, and yeah, that's going to be in the minds of a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans. But I personally think that this team has taken a step. I think they're much more solid. In the crease, there's a confidence in Mike Smith's game, but that's always in the back of your mind. And you talk about transition chances, both of these teams give them up. So this is going to be haymaker after haymaker, and it'll be fun. If you don't have a horse in the race, so to speak, if you're a neutral fan, this should be a fun series because they do have players on both sides that can be run and gun, pretty loose defensively at the best of times. And at least on one side, I know Mike Smith has been great. He's been great this year. He's maybe a top 10, top 7 kind of Vezina contender. You could even say top 5, depending on where you think he's been. But there's always that question of if he's handling the puck in the playoffs, is it going to end up in the back of his net? Like, I think he's done great this year, but that's always a question I'll have with Mike Smith is great puck handler, but at the same time, there's a risk there as well. So from an entertainment point of view, run and gun, I love it. Bring it. Let's get this thing going. But I still got the Oilers in 5.
I'm setting the over-under at Mike Smith-related gaffes leading to goals at least 1.5.
1.5?
I might take...
Wow, I thought you were going to go half. I'm going to take the under on that one.
Okay, you'll take the under? All right, I'll go over. I say the Oilers do it, but it takes them a while. This one is going to go 7 games between the Oilers and the Jets. What say you? Let us know in the comments. We're getting fired up for this series and the North Division playoffs in general. Let us know in the comments. Subscribe as always, and we'll see you in the next video.